All right, folks, good evening, WNBA and women's basketball fans, and welcome on back in to the WNBA 365 Network, your comprehensive home for all things WNBA and women's basketball. Back with you folks here after a very nice and celebratorious off day for the 4th of July holiday, and hopefully you folks had a tremendous 4th of July holiday wherever you enjoyed your 4th of July from. Folks, tonight, privileged to be joined on the program this evening for the meantime by our good buddy Owen Perkins, of course. Owen from WNBA Stats and Facts. Cal McClure back with you folks here from the Calamax Sports Studios in San Diego. And folks, we could be joined momentarily or during our hour-long program by Crystal Thomas from Los Angeles. But OP, welcome back, man. Great to have you back on board tonight, of course. Games get to, but of course, want to talk about some things outside of the action on the floor with you tonight, man. Good to see you. How's everything going back there in North Carolina?
Going great. It's 12:30 over here, but burning the midnight oil, and I'm doing great.
Great to hear, buddy. Of course, folks, get involved with the program by any means necessary. Facebook, Twitter, or the live chat box, facebook.com/WNBA365. Find us on Twitter at WNBA365, at Calamac3, or Owen's handle is at WNBA Stats Facts. Or, of course, follow Crystal on Twitter. Her handle is at Pup1010. Hashtag it with WNBA 365, or chime into the live chat box on the right corner of your screen. We'll get to your questions, comments, or concerns when we give ourselves a break in the action. Owen, quickly to start off the program, just saw a couple of tweets from one of our good correspondents, Stephen Anderson from Project Spurs. It was fun while it lasted, but Sophia Bruner immediately waved after the Stars game today against Connecticut, played a whopping 2 minutes and 20 seconds in tonight's game, according to sources. Owen, obviously, kind of starting off with the Stars, kind of on a side note before we get to the games here. Obviously, we knew that they were getting very, very close to the precarious 0-17 start, and many, many other things. Of course, they finally did, though, get a win to snap that streak. But Owen, obviously, the trade that I had talked about here a couple of days ago on the program, of course, with them, dealing away Monique Curry, who really was, maybe like their lone star player, quite literally a star player on the San Antonio team. But obviously, in all fairness, playing as well as she did, and again, sending, her over, there was somewhat of an indication from Ruth Riley, like, okay, we're going to surrender here. White flag's going to go up and kind of see where we can go from here. But I guess, Owen, what do you make, though, I guess, obviously, of seeing Sophia Bruner waved, literally minutes after a game tonight, in a game that they were blown out by Connecticut earlier this evening back at AT&T Center. What do you make about this roster transaction made by the Stars in your mind?
I really was sort of surprised. I wasn't expecting too much else movement-wise from the Stars, especially waiving a rookie who I thought had a little bit of promise, especially in Bruner. I really thought she could have fit in well with the organization. Of course, it's sort of disappointing to see the Stars in this situation. Since Dan Hughes left, it's been sort of a mash-up, just mush in there. And I'm not really sure what to think of that, other than maybe they're preparing awful early for a rebuild, or maybe trying to snag something before the contract deadline and the trade deadline. But other than that, I really can't think of anything that would be I just really thought that trade was, the waiving Sophie Bruner was really out of the ordinary, and I just don't know what to think about it, and I don't know what's going to come out of it.
Obviously, Owen, I think we could all agree that probably since Becky Hammond's retirement 2-3 years ago, we just kind of seen the Stars really deteriorate, kind of like watching a slow death, basically. Seeing of how well that team played during Hammond's last 2 seasons, then, of course, the first year after was a little bit rough and dicey. Obviously, Danielle Robinson was really the face of the franchise then. Then, of course, they go on to get Dearica Hamby and a couple other young studs that, of course, have fit the puzzle well, at least for the meantime. But obviously, again, folks, the Stars, literally minutes after the game between them and the Sun today, again, waiving Sophie Bruner today, who played roughly 2 minutes and change, and the Stars lost today to Connecticut. But more importantly, on to the scoreboard now. First game of the night, OP, the Dream and Wings. Dallas wins 94-84 today. For the Dream, leading the way was Tiffany Hayes, 16 points, and Brittany Sykes, who's had a couple of good games as well. She had 15 points. Skylar Diggins-Smith, team high 21 points, and that rookie, Alicia Gray, who's been in fuego, 20 points in the win for Dallas this evening. And Owen, I think as I as I think about Atlanta, something that I've talked about on here, I'm sure you've seen other people talk about and chat about, is of how they were very, very surprising at the start of the season. Again, had about a 4-1, 5-1 start to the year. Again, all of this minus Angel McCoughtry, at least the first half, maybe the full season at this point, somewhat of a Candace Parker type issue or resting period. But it seems like since a few weeks ago, Owen, it seems like things have really somewhat turned 180 for Atlanta so far. And obviously, we probably figured it was going to be somewhat of a dicey season, seeing ATL play without Angel for at least this year, maybe the first half, maybe the full season, who knows. But Owen, I guess in regards to Atlanta so far, would you probably say that probably before they hit this pretty rough patch, they have probably been one of the more, probably not the most, but one of the more surprising teams so far in the WNBA, or what would you say?
Absolutely. I think probably them and actually the Suns, with the injury to Alex Bentley, were probably the most surprising teams to me so far this season. I was really surprised. Of course, they started out really, really strong. And, sometimes you get youth in there and they sort of crash mid-season, especially with the rookies. Brittany Sykes coming in, they're still coming off this college season. It's, really long ride versus, they're getting into this year-long basketball, So, I was really surprised that they started out very strong. And I was about equally as surprised that they kind of fell through here lately. But I thought they played a decent game tonight. They had well-distributed scoring. They just couldn't finish the job.
I think, Owen, as well, I still say Tiffany Hayes is one of the most underrated players in the league as of right now. I mean, she's on that list of many players that, of course, kind of have their talents somewhat lost in the shuffle of other marquee superstars, either on their team, in their conference, or in the rest of the league. Owen, I guess if you probably had to give Tip Hayes a grade, maybe, letter grade perhaps, for the job she's done trying to somewhat lead ATL with, of course, with Angel being gone. At this point in the season, what would you grade her and why at this point?
That's a tough one. She's really carried the team on her back, especially without Angel being there. I'm going to have to say a B+, because I think her overall performance is, obviously not MVP worthy or anything like that, but it's definitely been enough to carry the dream on to a little bit of success, especially at the first of the season. But now it's kind of starting to slow down a little bit. But maybe if the whole team's production would step back up, then we could see some more wins down in Atlanta.
Oh, and now to the Wings, who played, I believe they played their 10th home game of a season already today, already 10 games at home. So they're already 7 games left at home. So they have a full buffet of road trips and flyer miles coming up for them. But obviously, Skylar Diggins-Smith, 21 points. But again, Owen, I mean, these Dallas rookies just find more and more ways to help their team out. And they really continue to impress, I think, all of us, in regards to the WNBA fan community. And Alicia Gray, 20 more points again, and really has, between her and Kayla Davis have been two of the most fun rookies to watch so far this season. Diggins-Smith and Gray go for 41 combined points for Dallas's victory tonight over ATL. I guess in regards to rookie classes that you've probably seen, Owen, so far, where would this rookie class probably, in the years that you watched the WNBA, probably rank? Because, I mean, we've seen so much good talent. I mean, obviously, between the Wings, probably with the team that's probably had the most bang for their buck so far out of their rookie class. But probably in maybe other recent years, probably where does 2017 kind of rank? Obviously, I'd probably say that 2013 is probably one of my favorites up there somewhere, as is 04 and 08. But I mean, Owen, just talking about, all these, hot shots that we've seen play, and again, we've seen a lot with Dallas, but I guess where would 2017's rookie class somewhat be in regards to how well they really have performed so far in this, such in a brief amount of time in their professional careers?
So, in relative to recent drafts, I'm going to say that this one is the second best draft since 2014. And I think 2014 is the #1 draft because you had Odyssey Sims. Obviously, Chiney Gumake is hurt right now, but when she has been on the court, she's been a dominant force to reckon with. Who else? Alyssa Thomas. Chelsea Gray came through. She was almost second round, so I think that was a really strong draft. You had Natalie Achanwa, of course, Markeisha Gatling. She didn't, really grab hold in the league. She's not here this year, but for the most part, that 2014 draft class was my personal favorite, and I think the strongest out of the more recent years. But this was definitely the next strongest. Unfortunately, Kelsey Plum's not getting too many minutes down in San Antonio, and we'll just leave that one up for speculation. But I really am impressed with Alicia Gray, and I think, honestly, she's the leading Rookie of the Year candidate in my eyes.
I would agree. I mean, that's probably obviously that's for the voters to decide. But I mean, if we ran a fan poll sometime later in the season or once the regular season ends about Rookie of the Year, I think she'd get a lot of votes for that as well. A couple of comments from our good buddy Todd Mintz in the chat box about the Stars real quick. Owen, he says, do not understand what the Stars are doing. Yet they signed Erica De Souza, who, again, did nothing this evening and has not done a whole lot this season. They should be rebuilding completely and go for total youth and promise. About the Dream, he says they are really diving. He says potentially a struggle for the rest of the season. Seems everyone or every game has regressed, except for Brittany Sykes, who has played well the last couple of games. They are a little bit inconsistent. And about Skylar Diggins-Smith, he says, Sky probably playing or perhaps playing now at the best ball of her young career. Seemed to take 2 full years to recover from the injury, far more assertive, and is driving to the hole far more often. And obviously, we know that those injuries take forever sometimes for to heal up. But again, to reiterate the first game at least, folks, again, the Wings over the Dream 94-84, a final. Next game for the night, OP, the Sun, and Stars. Connecticut rolls San Antonio 89-56. Courtney Williams and Alyssa Thomas combining the night for 30 points, 17 for Court Williams and 13 for Thomas. Kayla McBride and Kelsey Plum combining for 23 points, 12 for McBride, 11 for Plum for the Stars, who now falter to a 2001 San Diego Chargers worst record season of 1-15 on the season. The Sun, I think, Owen, probably are the more shocking and surprising team. I think you brought this up in the last block of the program. Connecticut, I think, has really somewhat put their, kind of put themselves back on the map and said, look, we are no longer a doormat. We are here and here to stay. And again, obviously, okay, maybe it wasn't the best team to play, but of course, still though, Owen, Kurt Miller, I think, has done a great job so far. Even last year, of course, getting all those rookies. I know that he had a very bad poker hand dealt him with all the injury problems that he had between Banham and Chiney Agumake. But now here, obviously, still missing Chiney. But again, Alex Bentley's played great in spurts when when she got back from Belarus. You've had Jonquel Jones put her name on the map, of course. And I think, though, that I don't know if it was you, but I saw a couple of people talking about that on Twitter about how, in a very rare case, so when a trade works out for both teams between the Sparks and Sun trade, of course, it sent Chelsea Gray to L.A. and, of course, Jonquel Jones to Connecticut. Both teams are winners now officially in that trade. Owen, what probably can you kind of say that's the reason why the Sun are where they are? I mean, what's the reason? I mean, it's been, it's either been players stepping up in big situations or really, they finally have found that long-lost, elusive element in pro sports. I think this team's got pretty good team chemistry right now. But Owen, what do you probably point to and say why?
I agree with the chemistry comment. I really think that they have gotten together and have just absolutely bonded. Obviously, Orthea has been making appearances on Twitter. If you've seen the All-Star campaign videos, I think that's just a good example of how it's just the team bond like that and that. But I think also I'm very impressed with how Jonquel Jones has stepped up. She came in, she had like 21 rebounds one night earlier in the season. I was seeing the other night. Just absolutely. I mean, she's player of the month for this month. Just got announced today, her and Sylvia Fowles. I'm absolutely impressed with Jonquel Jones. And I think that she has really stepped up and came in, big points, big rebounds. I mean, 21 rebounds, that's 21 extra possessions per game. And that's the difference in these games that they're winning. That's games that they used to not have.
Last I checked my playoff picture spreadsheet, Connecticut was 5th in the league, so they would have been hosting Seattle again. At the last time I updated my spreadsheet again, that would have been a playoff matchup. They were 5 in the league. So Owen, I mean, you're looking, buddy, between a couple of years, in the bottom parts of the Eastern Conference, last place finishes, terrible records, and maybe in about a 2-year span, roughly, maybe a little bit longer, but roughly in about a 2-year window, they've gone from bottom parts, rebuilding, to, at least last time I checked, 5th place in the WNBA playoff picture. Owen, what does that say, though, I guess, about Kurt Miller, probably, or the coaching staff at least so far, and maybe as well about, some of the players that they did draft between, of course, getting Jones, obviously Shanae Wnba, of course, a couple of years ago, but, of course, between Rachel Banham, Alex Bentley, of course, has been there for a long time. But really, Owen, maybe outside of, the team chemistry, what else do you probably point to and say this is why Connecticut is where they're at right now and playing great basketball?
Well, other than the chemistry and other than Jonquel Jones, her strong performances under the basket, the coaching staff is, majority responsible here. He and Kurt and his coaching staff have turned this franchise around. And I am very impressed with the job done in Connecticut, not only on the game side, but also the business side, which I know we'll talk about later in the show with the attendance, because I have a few comments about their 15th anniversary and all of that. But the Connecticut franchise should be a model franchise, not only on the court, but on the business side, but really for all aspects: coaching staff, attendance, players, hard work, team chemistry, just model franchise right now in my eyes.
Owen, a question posed by Todd Mintz in the Hangout saying, Connecticut is only half game out of first in the East. Do you believe Alyssa Thomas is deserving enough of an all-star appearance? I, for one, say hell yes.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and just to kind of clean things up real quick, Connecticut and Phoenix virtually tied for 4th place right now in the league standings. Again, that was as at last update when I was able to update my spreadsheet a couple of days ago. And back to the Stars again. Now, obviously, we were kind of wondering if they were going to be on a collision course all season for, the 0-17 start by the 08 Atlanta Dream or the 3-31 season by the Tulsa Shock. Course still possible. Again, they did get the monkey off their back, get win number 1, but obviously tonight, yikes. Rough day at the office again. Kayla McBride and Kelsey Plum again teaming for 23 points, but again, they get blown out 89-56. Marquez, I think we knew it was, Owen, I think we knew it was going to be possibly a rough season. I had Marquez Anderson, our good Stars correspondent from Stars Hoops on my mind because, he's been I give him props for hanging in there, man. It's tough, I'm sure. Being a part of it. But Owen, I think though that we knew it was going to be rough. But Owen, I don't think we would have thought it would be this rough. I think for San Antonio. What about you? What did you probably say about this start? I think right now for them, obviously 1-15 so far on the season.
I absolutely expected something a little bit better. I'm really disappointed. I guess I want to hope so bad that it's just growing pains, but of course, it's looking a little bit worse than that. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing much else from them this year. Maybe towards the end of the season, they can get past the 3-31 mark that you mentioned earlier, set by the Tulsa Shock a few years back. I really would hate to see them, get a highly regarded number 1 pick and then just kind of the season go to waste like this. And, it's just sort of been just almost hurts your pride for them. As you mentioned, Marquez, I can't imagine. I really can't. It's just that they just are having a tough time on the court. She has a lot of youth in there. She has the talent, and I think she has the coaching staff, and I think they have the front office. I just think it just hasn't gelled yet, and I think that'll come with time and maybe a few changes.
Owen, between both of us, having played sports in our time, obviously baseball, tennis, what have you, man, and I've been on a few of those teams, man, where you're just, where you get frustrated, you're pissed off and upset when you haven't won a game, and obviously – I think probably it lit a fire under for Kayla McBride. Obviously, when one of our great sources, Hoop Feed on Twitter, sent out probably a maybe in her mind a snarky gif about the being 0-13, and obviously she replied back, saying what needed to be said, and obviously, but oh man, I mean, I got where it came from, man, because when you're on a team that loses, day in and day out, obviously, I mean, that you put forth your best effort, but you just don't get rewarded on the scoreboard, man, or in the standings, man. It sucks, and I've been there plenty of times. I'm sure you have, man. Obviously, Owen, in your mind, how much of a toll really, at least in your time playing, does losing really take on you? Because obviously, I know that people or players or athletes will react differently one way or another to losing, but obviously, when it happens over and over and over again, it's like watching infomercials on a loop for an hour or so a day. But really, in reality, though, man, how much does losing, though, on a repetitive basis really, though, suck?
I mean, it's awful. It's a terrible feeling to have to go through. It's nothing anyone wants to feel. And I really don't believe it's something that someone should be forced to feel. But at the same time, it's in your hands to win. It's your game to win, in your control. I mean, I saw the tweet from Hoopfeed, and I don't mean to bring that back up, but, it could have been a little bit less, in my opinion, on Hoopfeed's behalf. But, of course, I respect them. They've been doing this a lot longer than I have. But, I do understand where both sides come from, because it's very disappointing to see a 1-15 team who's had the #1 pick just now. And not only a #1 pick, but a highly regarded #1 pick. And, not use her as much as we thought. And, I think just maybe some chemistry issues, may have led to it. But it's just disappointing. And it's coming from, I understand where Taylor McBride's coming from. It's disappointing from the fan standpoint, the front office standpoint, and the athletes and the coaching standpoint.
So again, folks, Connecticut rolling San Antonio 89-56. Final game for the night, OP. The Mystics and Mercury. Phoenix hangs on to win 88-80 on a very rough shooting night for Diana Taurasi. But DT, though, did make a pretty big dagger 3 late in the ballgame to give Phoenix a huge, or at least give them a pretty big boost in the ballgame. Alana Deladon, 15 points for Washington, lead the way for them. Ivy Lotta, 13. Brittany Griner continues to have somewhat of a bounce-back season, another bounce-back game for BG, 30-point effort for her. And Camille Little chips in 14 points again. And again, as I said, on a night where Diana Taurasi has a rough shooting night again, obviously she had the big 3 to, of course, give Phoenix, a pretty big boost late in the ball game. But again, Brittany Griner, again, and is able to, again, establish herself in the paint, and again, chips in another 30-point game. Obviously, her and Little chipping in 44 combined. Oh, and I guess to kind of go with Brittany Griner first and foremost, obviously, probably a year for her to remember or to forget last season, of course, with how it was obviously a very rocky season for her. But this year, looks like, man, really, really has reestablished herself inside. And, of course, her mid-range game continues to be spot on. Again, her layups and her post moves, of course. And I guess what have you seen differently from Brittany Griner so far in all of the 30-point games so far this season, as maybe opposed to maybe last season, where, again, she somewhat – again, had probably, as I mentioned, and probably by her standards, probably a season to probably forget last season.
Yeah, she seems to be a little bit more agile down there in the post. She's got a little bit better footwork down there. And obviously it's resulting in better output, better scoring. Of course, she's not rebounding as much as I'd like to see from her. And maybe that just is an expectation of her height. And I understand that you can't just base rebounding expectations off of height, because that's not exactly how it works. But she has been a lot more productive in the post, and I think that comes directly from maybe off the court changes. Maybe she's eating healthier. I know we've all heard about the crazy Maya Moore diet. Maybe she's been eating healthier. Maybe she's just on the court more, working harder, because she was, maybe she was just really disappointed, back to like losing, not doing well on the team. It's not a good feeling. So you want to fix it. So maybe that was her cause there, and it looked like it's worked for her.
Owen, I think going back, or at least thinking about this game again, Phoenix wins 88-80. But Tom still brings up a very valid, spot-on point, though, about the Mystics so far in the chat box. He says, in regards to Washington, they have yet to beat a really good side so far this season. Now, again, they have an unblemished record against conference opponents, but they have really, really scuffled against the Western Conference so far. Of course, getting beat up a few times by Minnesota, letting a 17-point halftime lead go against Los Angeles on Sunday while getting plastered to the wall by the Sparks back in May, 99-89. So really, I think, Owen, at least for Washington at least, now going to the Mystics again, it's been a tale of two teams versus the West and East. Obviously, the Western Conference has been loaded for many, many years lately between the Lynx, the Sparks, the Mercury, Seattle now again, kind of getting back on the map as well. And then, of course, the young team in Dallas and, of course, the rough stretch for San Antonio. But I guess, Owen, does that somewhat raise concern, though, maybe if you're a Mystics fan in regards that, hey, we've been good against our conference, but we really can't duplicate that success against the Western Conference so far. Does that somewhat, I guess, raise concern, I guess, if you played better against your own conference, which is fine and dandy, but if you play the Western Conference in the WNBA Finals, as of right now, it's not looking good for the Mystics if they get that far. But what do you think, though, and why?
So I think that it is concerning to an extent, and it is less concerning or more concerning depending on how you look at it. If you look at it from I want a very good record, 20 whatever, 29-5 or 28-6 kind of record going into the playoffs, I don't think it's that concerning. If you're looking more at like a regular season wins and losses type finish, if you're looking at it from that standpoint, I don't think it's as concerning because those are games, they come to the East Coast, time difference. You go to the West Coast, time difference. There's little things like that I don't think a lot of people consider that can, change the outcome of games that typically would be lopsided or one-sided or maybe even close, may make them lopsided or one-sided. So I think from that standpoint, it's not that big of a deal. But now if you're looking at the Mystics going in a 5, 6, 7, 8 seed or even a 3 or a 4 seed and being at risk for these single elimination games, I think it is a huge risk to not be able to perform well against Western Conference opponents. And I think that's something they need to work on, absolutely, because nobody is going to be looking for just a nice record to go home with at the end of the season and play one playoff game. No one's looking for that here. So I think it is very important that they get their Western Conference win-loss situation under control and figure out how to handle some of these more, stocked and powerful opponents. Because if they can't, they're going to get to these single elimination games. They'll lose one game and be done. Or they can get to the semifinals, lose 3 or lose 5 games, be done. Get to the finals even and lose. If you're facing a Western Conference team that you can't beat, then you won't win.
And so far, the Mystics have scuffled so far versus the Western Conference so far this season. Todd says real quick about the Stars real quick. This was an earlier point he brought up. He said on Twitter tonight, everyone says the Stars tanked this evening. Find that pretty silly. No one is going to lay down. That is the last thing the coach needs, who is on a 1-year contract. And obviously, I don't know if it was more of a tank job, just the fact that Connecticut just blew their doors off tonight. And obviously, probably one of those nights for the Stars where the ball just didn't fall their way. But again, folks, to revisit your scores from the night, once more, Dallas 94, Atlanta 84, Connecticut pummel San Antonio 89-56, and the Mercury over the Mystics 88-80. Final scores tonight from the WNBA. With that, folks, a quick note for you folks. WNBA fan voting for the All-Star Game will conclude tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 o'clock Eastern. Keep voting on WNBA.com, the WNBA app, or on Facebook or Twitter with the player's first and last name with the hashtag WNBA vote. And we'll get in your votes will be casting. And, folks, the All-Star Game coming up on July 22nd, 12:30 tip-off from Key Arena in Seattle, Washington, TV, scheduled for ABC. Potentially could be on ESPN, but it's going to be either ESPN or on ABC. Some news footnotes for you folks real quick. Again, as Owen mentioned, Jonquel Jones and Sylvia Fowles were named the Players of the Month by the WNBA. Players of the Week were Alyssa Thomas and Candace Parker, and Brian Agler was named the WNBA's Coach of the Month for leading the Sparks to a one-loss month and to the second-place spot in the WNBA and Western Conference standings. All right, Owen, we brought you on to discuss this off-the-court topic. Of course, it's been obviously talked about amongst the community on the web. Plenty of times, of course, has been WNBA league-wide attendance. Now, again, at least last I checked my sheet, because I've been keeping one as well, somewhat along the lines of you as well. At least this way, I even wrote them down right here. At least from what I've got, at least gathered, Owen, top 6 teams right now in attendance: Phoenix, New York, LA, Minnesota, Seattle, and Indy. Top 6 is what I have. Bottom 6, I have San Antonio, Washington, Chicago, Dallas, Connecticut, and Atlanta in the number 12 spot right now at this point in time. Now, Owen, I know that, of course, that you have done a phenomenal job keeping us in the loop with attendance, of course, on Twitter lately. Owen, what can you tell us, though, from your side of the story about league-wide attendance so far this season?
So I see a lot of this on Twitter. So when I tweet out these tables, which I tweeted out just before the show, I'll go ahead and retweet that real quick so that way viewers can go on Twitter and see that. I put the decrease from the final amount, the percent of decrease from the final amount of last season. So for this most recent time that I posted these tables, not this tonight, but the previous time, it was a 9.6% decrease, and the time before that it was over 10%. And a lot of people worry about that, but we shouldn't worry just yet, and here's why. So if you look back, the first table of the post on Twitter that I just retweeted on my page is a table from this year of this time. The second table, the second picture, is a table from this time. And you'll see that the numbers are, there's a lot of teams in the red at that time. And I really don't think we should worry yet, because at this time, if you compare the time we're in right now to the time that we were in last year, we're only behind about 5.5%, and that's easily recoverable. I had some special events written down here, just some factors that I think a lot of people don't consider when they look at these things. So like Atlanta, they're playing in McCamish Pavilion. They're not downtown Atlanta anymore. They're a little bit off to the side. That's something a lot of people don't consider. They have 0 home wins this season. 0. I think that's something else. A lot of people won't come to the games if they don't think they're going to win. You know, obviously you can't really help that. It's sometimes hit and miss, but and then Connecticut, I talked about them earlier being a model franchise, and I want to elaborate on that just a little bit. So this Connecticut right now is a perfect example of how on-court success can double with off-court success to just make a just perfect model franchise. Their attendance is up. It's their 15th anniversary. They really have this energy, just excitement going around their franchise. They're performing well on the court, off the court, doing even better. It's just amazing in Connecticut. And then you have Dallas, and a lot of people see the Dallas numbers and think, God, they're dragging down. And they are. I'm not going to shy away from it. But we also have to remember that their arena is the smallest in the league and caps at 7,000. That's about 600 people below the league average from last season. Connecticut's arena also draws less than 10,000, 9,300, I believe. But Dallas has the smallest home court. Then on to Indiana. They are struggling on the court a little bit in one of the lottery spots right now, borderline playoffs. Plus, Tamika Catchings brought a lot of the community support. She's not there anymore. Obviously, she's working in the Pacers front office, but her not being on the court, I think, has detracted a lot from the fever and getting people out to games. But let me move on to my next page here. Minnesota, they're doing great this year. They're ahead of where they were last year. They're playing in the XL Energy Center in St. Paul, across the river from Minneapolis. And their continued success has fans coming to the games. On-court success will dictate, attendance and sales and all this. And that's sales and online views and Twitter TV ratings. That's something that we'll have to get into sometime later, because that's a whole nother that'd have to be a 60-minute episode right there. But New York, they have the largest fan potential ratio, which I'll talk about that in just a second, of any team in the league. So they're kind of shrunk down a little bit from their level of success the past couple of years, but that's nothing they still can't fix. They've got plenty of time. We're just now reaching halfway. Phoenix, of course, on-court success. They're strong, the strongest marketing department in the league. Absolutely. And plus the accomplishments of Diana Taurasi, I think, are bringing out a lot of fans to the games. San Antonio, they started strong with some nice attendance. I think that was a lot of the excitement with Kelsey Plum coming to town. Recently, they just had their first win, of course. Maybe that'll spark some excitement. But, of course, we'll have to see. And then Seattle, of course, is hanging in there with the All-Star game being hosted there later this year, later this month, actually. And they're having steady success. They're not really inconsistent. They're, not top four, but they're not bottom four either. They're sort of right there in that middle four, just kind of hanging in there in the playoff spot. And then the Mystics, I was sort of disappointed in their attendance, not to single them out. But they had some new additions, and they are 7-2 at home. Only 2 home losses, and still averaging just under 6,300 fans a game. So, but, it'll vary some. We always have a big push about 3/4 of the way through the season, which this season should be around August the 10th or 15th. I'm looking for a big boost as we rush towards the playoffs. But back to the fan potential rating that I talked about with New York. So each team, I've developed a fan potential rating or ratio, whatever you want to call it, and it is in regards to their attendance, their average attendance versus the citizens in the town, which I know you're thinking, well, there's out-of-towners and there's visitors and away team fans that come in and visit. There's a lot of different factors. But I have 3 factors here that I think really, really, really determine ticket sales. So that's the fan potential rating, which is the amount of people attending a home game in their city since are in the city. Then I have the median age and the median income, because we market to a certain age. It's this sports. We're looking at 18 to 35 typically. Of course, that's straight out of the marketing class, but we can, that's just the highly regarded sports demographic there. And also, fans won't come if they don't have disposable income. So the higher the median income, the more opportunity I see for ticket sales. So the teams that I think have the most ticket sales, or the best opportunity for ticket sales, is actually Connecticut. They have 1 fan at every game for 42 citizens in the city of, in the New London metro area, which includes Uncasville, that area right around where Mohegan Sun is. They have the oldest median age in the league at 41, but the highest median income of $66,000 for a household, which absolutely nothing to frown about there. They, of course, really support their team. And then you see Seattle and Washington, their median income is up in 70,000s. Their median ages are a little bit lower, and they both run about a 1-to-90 fan potential ratio. So in regards, I'm going to start using this a lot on my Twitter page, and I'm probably going to refer a lot of people back to this podcast to get an explanation about it. But to judge how a fan potential rating and what's a good versus a bad is you want a low number. You want a 1 to every low number. For example, Connecticut has 1 fan attending a game to 42 citizens in the city or in the metro area of New London. But you want that number to be low. However, you don't want to drop in attendance. So you'd have to check the actual attendance average first and then look at the fan potential rating. So maybe I can work a few kinks out. Maybe we could have a new metric to measure attendance. So But other than that, that's pretty much what I've been using to judge success without having to look back at previous years, especially with the circumstances that are in place. Like I said, Atlanta and McCamish Pavilion, Minnesota in St. Paul, and all kinds of just changes that, vary year to year.
And also, Owen, I mean, on top of obviously Atlanta, we know they were last in my rankings. I think if I could pull mine up real quick, I think my combined or total for ATL so far this season, again, based off the box scores, again, through 6 home games, 24,802 combined. Obviously, that's a big factor, of course, and we see it a lot, though, Owen, of course, playoffs, or even in the cases with the Lynx and the Dream, of course, the big arena fill up saying Target not available because of renovations going on for, their brother franchises or the other teams that play inside the arena, which, of course, I think also gets lost in the shuffles of how, many of these teams obviously share arenas with either other NBA teams, hockey teams, what have you. But also, and what I also factor into in regards to attendance is also what I like to call San Diego syndrome, which is other things that fans or people would probably be doing, maybe other teams that are in their market. Obviously, I call it San Diego syndrome because when the Padres lose, we go and find other things to do, like go to the Bay or go to Old Town or Balboa Park. And, and just based off of what I can find, Owen, at least during the summer, at least. Now, again, I know that there's a lot going on, but at least, coinciding with the WNBA season from roughly once, probably after the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Finals. And so you're looking at least from now, or at least maybe June till August, maybe at least roughly, is there's obviously other things going on in these cities. So, I mean, you brought up as well about, other areas going on. So just to rattle off some of the other stuff that is going on, of course, in these other cities, obviously, along with the Dream playing as well, the Braves are playing right now at their brand new ballpark at SunTrust Park in Battery Park. You have the brand new Atlanta Soccer Club, who has sold out Georgia Tech's football stadium, 55,000 every home game, and they're moving into Mercedes-Benz Stadium with the Falcons sometime soon. A big factor, too, with the Sky, at least, in regards to it, is they are not in United Center. They're playing in Rosemont, Illinois, being shared with a American Hockey League franchise. The Cubs, the defending World Series champs, play in Chicago. The White Sox are also in Chicago, on top of them also having 2 soccer clubs, too, Owen, between the Fire and then the Red Stars of the NWSL. The Sun are in a market, at least in the Hartford area, with the Colorado Rockies AA affiliate in minor league baseball playing. Dallas, of course, is in the market with the Texas Rangers, the Cowboys during football season, on top of their potential future deal with the Mavericks, perhaps maybe an American Airlines Center on top of them playing with them there. The Fever are, of course, with the Pacers during the NBA season, but also share their attendance maybe with a lot of AAA baseball fans. Of course, LA, you can get distracted with any team that plays in LA. They have a team in every league there. Of course, the Lynx, probably, I think right now, and I think Ben Wagner, one of my good friends on Twitter, Rashad Jackson as well, they would all probably agree that the Lynx are probably more popular than the Twins and the Vikings and the Wild at certain points during the course of their season. The Liberty, of course, are in MSG with the Rangers and the Knicks, and then on top of them with the Yankees and Mets and all the other teams that do play there. The Mercury, I think, are somewhat in a pretty good spot, I think, when the Diamondbacks kind of fade away towards the end of the season. Right now, they're still in the mix, Owen, but I think, though, that with that the Mercury, of course, that they're always going to sell, because when it's 115 degrees outside, go watch a basketball game in the air-conditioned arena. The Stars are sharing their market, of course, with the Spurs and then the San Antonio Rampage of the AHL, on top of them having the Padres AA affiliate in baseball on top of this. And then with the Storm, the Mariners, the Sounders, the Seattle Reign, of course, and then the Mystics being a part of the Ted Leonis group, of course, at Verizon Center with the Capitals and the Mystic with the Capitals and the Wizards, and of course the Nationals are turning things up right now in Major League Baseball. So Owen, I think though too that a potential, at least in my opinion, again, being in San Diego my whole life, and I've seen the Padres and Chargers go through terrible seasons, and again, I call this San Diego syndrome because there's other things that people probably people that don't like the sport would rather be doing than, of course, going and seeing the WNBA play. But again, that's a big thing too. I think that people forget is that when you're in a city, much like Los Angeles or Phoenix, and you're sharing the area with baseball and football and all these other sports going on, that during certain points of the season, that there's going to be that there's going to be other conflicts. And I mean, like I said, Owen, I got the Padres here. I work for two of the other teams that play in San Diego. MLS maybe in 3 years, who knows? But Owen, I know that the White Sox have a minor league team in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, too, as well. So I know that there was a team in Winston-Salem that they'd be battling with them for attendance as well. But Owen, I guess though, obviously, Todd has been having some great stuff on the in the chat box. His cities, I think that he's that he's a little bit concerned about or is concerned about, Owen, with attendance has been Chicago, Atlanta, San Antonio, and Dallas. Owen, he wants to know is, do those four franchises have any long-term will those four teams have any long-term problems if their attendance does not somehow go up sometime this season or even in maybe future seasons?
So that's actually a really good question. I've been meaning to explain this to a lot of people lately because I do get asked this question somewhat frequently. But ticket sales are not 100% the majority source of revenue for these teams. A lot of times, the majority of the revenue comes from concession sales inside the arena, merchandise sales. Of course, what you do get out of ticket sales, all kinds of outreach, and I know that sounds weird, but that's sort of like an indirect financial consequence would be outreach, community outreach and working out in the community. But a lot of times you'll see them have camp days or they'll hand out tickets to organizations. And here's what I have to say about that. Yes, your attendance numbers will increase. Your ticket sales will not. However, getting fans into the arena is the #1 way to complete the following: increase brand awareness, merchandise sales, concession sales. So you end up, what happens, you get these people in here for free. Let's pretend I hand out 20 tickets to Habitat for Humanity, and I'm working for Dallas. I hand out 20 tickets to Habitat for Humanity. They come in, they each buy a T-shirt, and they each get popcorn, a drink, and a hot dog. Boom. I've paid for that ticket, and I've made a little bit more. So even without the ticket revenue, you still get money from it. Now, the problem there is, like, that was a scenario if that was a charitable organization or, nonprofit sort of thing. But those, for Dallas right now, the average is $3,699. So those 3,699 people are coming in there. They're buying shirts, souvenirs, jerseys, food, drinks, all kinds of stuff inside the arena that I think really has a lot more of a silent impact on financial success. But ticket sales don't get me wrong, ticket sales are still big, but you can get away without having incredible amounts of attendance. But you do need some sort of brand support from the fans, if that makes sense.
Owen, two questions. First, from one of our good viewers, from Michael Love. Mike is asking, does the typical WNBA fan also follow the NBA fan? Are there important differences? And what about the larger Twitter audiences to leverage those viewers? Now, see, I'm kind of stuck in a sticky situation, having been a Lakers fan my whole life, but can't confirm this still yet via ancestry. But there's a potential my family could be related to the ownership of the Suns and Mercury, so I'm kind of in the middle of both teams right now at this point. But I mean, I've been to one Lakers game at Staples Center. I've seen them 5 times in San Diego when they've come here for their preseason games and stuff. So I follow, but not diehard or as much as I would follow the WNBA, Owen. But I would agree, though, in regards to Michael's question is, Owen, do you think, though, that most WNBA fans do follow, obviously Sparks fans following the Lakers and Clippers, Lynx fans following the Timberwolves, or even the Mercury fans following the Suns, probably do typical WNBA fans, at least in my case, or even in our case, probably do most of those regular fans potentially follow NBA teams or NBA counterparts in your mind?
In my mind, I think some do, some don't. For me personally, I follow my Charlotte Hornets down in Charlotte, and occasionally I'll check in with wherever an NC State graduate went. Dennis Smith Jr. just went to the Mavericks, so I'll probably watch the Mavericks for a little while, and then I'll be back to my Hornets. I don't think there's as much crossover from the WNBA to the NBA as much as there is NBA to WNBA, just because of the size and fan bases, the differential. So when we see fans move from one league to the other and watch both, I think it's more NBA than WNBA. Now, should we support the NBA? Absolutely. They support us. No questions asked. We should be supporting them. And to what extent, up to you. But yes, I think that some do, some don't. However, we all should. It's just, I mean, it's basketball's basketball.
One other question real quick. Todd is saying, again, he brought up Camp Day. Oh, and again, Camp Days have had great attendance. I went to a game against Atlanta last year, and my goodness, it was just so fun seeing all those kids get into the game. He's saying, is the answer maybe to attendance, say, should every team do maybe 3 Camp Day games this season to somewhat, as you somewhat brought up, though, about obviously the freebies being handed out, but more importantly, again, about the revenue being returned back from merchandise and food sales. I mean, would that perhaps be a way, is maybe more than just 1 Camp Day game, maybe 2, maybe 3 at most, or what do you think?
I think absolutely. So if each team has 17 home games, I think there is no issue with having at least 3. The season runs May to September. You can fit 1 in May, maybe 1 out in the middle of July for all your summer camps, YMCA type things. Throw 1 out in September for when school goes back. Amazing. Fill the arena up, get all the kids in there. Each kid's going to bring a little bit of money with them. They're going to buy popcorn. They're going to buy a drink. They're going to buy whatever, rally towel. You swing it around. Boom whackers, all kinds of just little knickknacks. And then not only do you get the revenue from that, but those kids, especially the kids, not necessarily the adults, but the kids, those T-shirts and the little can koozies and the little stress ball, whatever, novelty little mini basketballs, they'll carry that around. They'll go to the park and they'll play with that basketball, and it's going to be Dallas Wings. Well, as these cars are driving by, they're going to see this brightly colored basketball, green and blue. They're going to, what in the world is this? They're going to see Dallas Wings on the side of, if they're close enough, and they are going to get some sort of brand awareness. So not only are you getting the return revenue from these free tickets, you're getting increased brand awareness and brand loyalty from not only the kids, but the kids' parents, the kids' friends, people associated with the organization, people associated with the organizations that the kids are part of, schools, community outreach. You're going to get all kinds of just positive, and I don't understand why teams don't do more of those. I really don't.
And I think to kind of go back to the point I brought up again now, again, judging by the 12 teams again, now again, over the summer again, where it's normally baseball season at both the pros and the minor league level, soccer's going on again. Every team I listed shares their market, or at least shares the city, at least, with either professional baseball, minor league baseball, or soccer during the months of May till roughly August, until NFL season starts. Oh, and I don't think it gets factored enough. And again, that's why I call this San Diego syndrome, because again, when either the team doesn't win or you don't want to go to a game, you can find other ways to distract yourself. Oh, and how much does it – I mean, obviously, I know that it helps. Obviously, we saw Diana Taurasi get honored by the Diamondbacks a few games ago with that very sweet home jersey with 7,489 on it. She threw out the first pitch. At a D-backs game, we saw a couple of players for the Wings do it at a Double-A game in Frisco, Texas. But, Owen, what are the pros and cons, though, of these teams playing their season, or even in that matter, playing in the same city as, you know, teams like the Braves or the Dodgers or the Diamondbacks, or obviously, or other pro leagues that, of course, sometimes will take fans away from a WNBA game to a game that, of course, is probably going to be attended by more and more people, and you know, and all the other factors that we know about. So what do you think about that, perhaps?
I think absolutely it does draw the crowd away from the teams, especially WNBA teams and the smaller teams like NWSL, Occasionally the MLS, if it's a very competitive market like Los Angeles or Chicago. But I do think that it does pull away from the WNBA teams. However, it does provide a unique opportunity for cross promotion, as you said, with the Wings going to the Frisco Rough Riders game, and Diana Taurasi getting recognized by the Diamondbacks. But what I think would be a better idea, and this is just personal, this is me thing, it's not any kind of proven, any whatever, never seen it done before, and this is why I'm bringing it up. Why are we not bringing Rough Riders fans to our place? Why is Dallas not bringing Rough Riders fans to Wings games? Why are Diamondbacks not coming to Mercury games? And maybe they are, but I couldn't tell you who threw out the first pitch at the last baseball game I went to. I have no idea. It becomes the point. I mean, if you go to the Diamondbacks game, Diana Taurasi is going to throw out the first pitch. That's about a 10-minute ordeal. And don't get me wrong, that's fabulous. That's amazing. That's great. But I think it can be greatly improved on if we were bringing these bigger teams with larger, more dedicated, loyal fan bases and making positive associations, community outreach, all kinds of just interconnections with these teams. For example, Los Angeles, why they need to be connecting with the Dodgers, the Padres, all the teams out there, the Galaxy, all kinds. So I know there's a couple of like rivalry lines in there, but we could maybe work around them just for the time. But
Owen, I don't know about the Padres going to a Sparks game. After what the Chargers did to San Diego on January 12th, we want nothing to do with Los Angeles ever again. I mean, I still do, but the city of San Diego was like, no more. Uncle, we tap out here. But no, I mean, I totally, Owen, I totally agree because I went to the Mercury playoff game in 2015 when they played Tulsa, and to see Devin Booker and Tyson Chandler and Jeff Hornacek, who was still the coach at the time, at the Mercury playoff game was great and all. Obviously they had some video messages, some video messages from Paul Goldschmidt of the Diamondbacks, from Larry Fitzgerald of the Cardinals. I mean, I've gone to Sparks games, and I met Magic Johnson after I turned 23 this year. I met Rick Fox. I met Kel Mitchell. So I mean, we're seeing it, Owen, but probably not to the degree that I think we would like to see, the cross promotion, because obviously, I mean, from my time working in the American Hockey League down here in San Diego again, and my team is sending players to the Anaheim Ducks of the NHL. I mean, I've gotten to introduce Trevor Hoffman, Nick Hardwick, Willie O'Ree, many local San Diego greats. But now it's a matter, Owen, of this point I agree, though, obviously, more and more Lakers coming to Sparks games, more Clippers coming to Sparks games, more Diamondback players and Cardinal players going to Mercury games, more Twins players and Vikings players going to games in Minnesota, maybe more Mariners going to the games in Seattle. So obviously plenty of work to be done. Real quick, one more question from Mike. He's asking, what about the fans who attend women's college basketball games? Market to them aggressively is what he's also saying. I'm not quite sure where to go on that one. Again, what about the fans who attend women's college basketball games? Market to them aggressively. And we have one more minute left here on the program real quick, or a couple minutes left, I should say. We have 2 games tomorrow in the WNBA. The long-awaited WNBA Finals rematch finally comes to us tomorrow. The Sparks and Lynx, 5 o'clock Pacific on ESPN2 from the Xcel Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. Then the Liberty will take on the Storm at 7 o'clock p.m. from the Key Arena in Seattle, Washington. All right, Owen, I think the biggest gripe you had, I had, all of us had was, why was there not a Game 6 to start off this season on opening night? Obviously, we had to wait all the way till July 6th to have the first meeting between the Sparks and Lynx, of course, and a finals that probably doesn't top Teaspoon's half-court or three-quarter court shot against the Comets, but was right up there, maybe 1B. Owen, first and foremost, I guess, we're probably, in your mind, I guess, when the schedule came out, what was your gut reaction, I guess, when you saw that LA would not play Minnesota first game of the year. Again, somewhat the WNBA dropping the ball. Again, they come off having probably the most intriguing, most epic, most exciting, and perhaps most viewed finals in recent memory. But yet we have to wait till July 6th to see the first match between these two prominent Western, WNBA final, again, another potential finals matchup. But what do you think about the WNBA initial reaction when you first saw the schedule come out again? LA playing Seattle, Minnesota not playing LA to start off the season this year.
Well, I was sort of disappointed, but there was also other good matchups, that we could see. But, of course, that is something you do want to start the season off with. That's some great energy you've got coming off of that. It really caught the attention of a lot of people. And I think that we did miss an opportunity as a league and as a fan base to increase viewership, especially to start off the 21st season of the league's existence. I think for us hardcore fans like me and you that are always here, I think it was disappointing for us, but also disappointing for the league, for the entire league from a growth aspect, meaning, we don't get to continue the energy that we felt back in October when this finals went down. But I think the league did miss an opportunity there to extend its fan base even further.
You think back to the post-game interviews that the Sparks did again with the Sparks winning that game in very, very incredible fashion, again, winning with 3.1 seconds left, 77-76. So many players were talking about, I was ready for another game to be played because it was that captivating, that exciting, that epic of how great that series was played. But again, having to wait all the way till July 6th for the first of three meetings. Again, folks, Sparks and Lynx, game 6 of the matchup, if you want to go with that. But again, they'll face each other for the first time all season tomorrow night, 5 o'clock p.m. And then, of course, Owen, there's the scuffling New York Liberty, who will face Seattle at 7 o'clock from the Pac Northwest. Obviously, the Liberty, they have been somewhat in shambles lately, again, having a very, very, one of those slumps of the season so far, or mid-season slump so far. But obviously, they still have been somewhere up in the, in the middle part of the playoff mix. But Owen, in your mind, is this a pivotal game for New York in your mind, because considering of how somewhat shaky that they played over the past couple of weeks?
Okay, say that again. You went out on me.
Do you believe that for this game with the Liberty specifically, again, they've been somewhat in a dry spell lately, again, wins every once in a while, again, somewhat inconsistent play. Is this a pretty pivotal game in your mind for New York?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one that you could really get the team behind, and it could really change the energy for the rest of the season, especially, with the All-Star break coming up. I think it would be great for them to go out with a little bit of energy. Not that it's, starting right after this game, but get some good energy going for the team to go for the playoff push and maybe, get back up to where they were last year, 3rd seed.
So again, folks, 2 more games on the schedule for tomorrow night. Again, the Sparks and Lynx, round 1 of their schedule 3 for the regular season. And again, if you're counting back from last year's finals, game 6 in general between these two squads. So again, 5 o'clock tip-off on ESPN2 from XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. And the Liberty and Storm will tip off at 7 o'clock p.m. from the Key Arena in Seattle, Washington. Todd Mintz says Seattle stunned Dallas last week, and they have been so awful on the road. New York is reeling. Stokes, Allen, and Wnba have all struggled lately. They are not great on the road like Seattle in the game at home, and they've normally in recent years have played very phenomenal at Key Arena as well. And again, LA will face Minnesota to renew their hostilities. Again, game 6 from their entire series will tip off at 5 o'clock p.m. PDT, 8 Eastern on ESPN2 from the XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. With that, Owen, we thank you very much, man, for coming on tonight. Obviously, getting a lot of explain to us about the attendance, and hopefully, when we come back on next time when we have you on, we'll probably talk about maybe getting your thoughts on WNBA on league-wide expansion, perhaps. I know we've talked about that the past couple of weeks, but I look forward to having you back on again. And thanks for coming on, dude.
Absolutely, I love being here.
With that, folks, we'll call it a night right here, and we will give you your final scores once more, folks. Again, the Wings over the Dream at 94-84, Sun plastered the Stars 89-56, and the Mercury edged the Mystics 88-80. And again, 2 games on your schedule tomorrow. Sparks and Lynx, 5 o'clock on ESPN2. Liberty and Storm, 7 o'clock on WNBA League Pass. For our buddy Owen Perkins over in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Cal McClurg signing off here from San Diego, California, folks. Have a good night, and we'll see you folks back here sometime in the future. Take care and good night. Bye-bye.